just to make the font look a bit better. I think what you have has it, so you don't have to worry about it, right? The file you have has it, so you don't have to. Then the next thing I want to do is to do my margin to 0, set my margin to 0, my padding also to 0, and box sizing I want to set it to border box. Okay, so it will remove that extra margin and padding in there. And then the next thing I want to do is to set the body, because I've imported the font but I'm not using it. So let me set it to font family of, that's Robo2, and then if it does not see it, it should fall back to, sorry, I have to use a comma. If it does not see that font, it should fall back to sans serif. Okay, so it's going to import this from Google's API and then bring it into my application. But if for some reason this particular API, okay, fails, it's on the internet can fail at any time, their server can fail, which is, it's not likely to happen just like that, but you know, anything can happen. In case that happens, you want it to fall back to this default font type. Okay, so we have the font setup, and then I also want to have some basic colors. Okay, and these colors are going to be I'm calling them this name, so let me just copy them because I already have that in the file. You can also copy it in the file. Some of them will type, some of them that does not need a lot of explaining, we'll just copy them and paste them there, right? So we have this basic color set up, our fonts resetting of our margins and paddings and box sizing. So now we can turn to our navbar, since we have that here and we want to style it. So we'll turn to that and say, let's give it a comment. So we'll do a / star and that, but then you can also use control and then the / to create your comment. Okay, and let me call this the navbar section. In the navbar section, we know that our navbar, which is this is the nav element, but in the main layout we called it a navbar. Okay, a class name of navbar. And take note, in HTML we use class, but in React we use what? Class name. The reason being that class, because the React component is a JavaScript file and class itself is a reserved word in JavaScript. That's why we can't use the name class, right? So it has to be class name in JavaScript to actually define the class names. But then when it's rendered eventually to HTML in our browser, it would be changed to class, not class name. But right in this component, you need to use class name. If you forget, it won't work, it won't function well. Okay, so take note of that. Now the next thing we want to do is to target this particular navbar, but then it's a div, it's on a div element. So I'm going to do this here and say this div dot navbar. Okay, we want to give it a height, and the height is going to be 50 px. So the navbar will have a height of 50 px, and then a width, we want it to span across the top, so it's going to be 100 VW. Viewport width, which is the entire width, the width that it has been provided in the browser, it's going to expand all the way to the end of that. And then we now want to copy our background. You see the background we have here in this page, we want to copy that and then put that background in here. So I'll paste that background. Let me wrap it a little bit to, let me do Control and Z, undo, Control Z, sorry, I'm doing something wrongly. Let me paste and do Alt Z instead, okay, to force it to wrap so that you can see the entirety of what we have just typed. So Alt Z will give us that. Now when I save, you can see at the top there we have that gradient color popping up. So we have that section. Now our nav links are no more showing well because the color seems to be the same as the background. So, and then we also have, in the actual one, we have that at the right side. So let's work on that to get it at the right. So we would have this popped up here. Let's go down one level to this part and then create that section as well. First of all, because it's in the div container of that particular element, we want to display it to be flex. And once it's a flex element, we can now come here and say div.navbar, okay, and then the nav element inside it should have a margin. And the margin, because we want to put it in the center, the margin at the top should be auto. The margin at the right is going to be top, right, bottom, and left. That is the definition when you only use margin, right? So the right side, we want it to be 50px. So it means we don't want it to be too close to the edge at the right side. So you should move a little bit, 50px from the edge towards the left side. And then the bottom tooth, we want it to be auto. So when we make the top auto and the bottom auto, it will force the element to be in the center of that particular container. And then at the left side, we want it to be auto. Now by doing this auto at the left side and then a fixed value at the right side, will cause the nav bar or the nav links to push, automatically jump to the right. So when I save this, you can see that it is now moved towards the right. You see, so auto means it should automatically position or space it out, and therefore the 50px is why it did not attach itself completely to the right side. So that is what we have just completely done here. Now we want to target the anchors, right? The links. So let's move to the links. So div.navbar, the nav element and its anchor tags, okay, or to conform to the what we have there, since the anchor is still a descendant of the navbar, we can also do it like this, right? And then say is text decoration, you can see some underline on it. So text decoration should be set to none, so that that underline will be taken away. You will remove that underline. And then also we want to give it a color, a different color, which is white. So let's give it, but I'm using a white smoke, so it wouldn't be that pure white, but then a little bit gray in the color, right? Then the text transform, we also want it to be uppercase. Likewise, we want it to display block, inline block. Now, so that it would have a property of height and width, we can also set the padding and so on. So let me give it a padding of 8px and then 10px. So you can now see it's in uppercase, it has been spaced out, and then there is some padding around them. The next thing is that when I hover, I want to add some effect to it to apply that red border below it when I hover my mouse over it. Like we have it here, there is some red color, and anytime I hover my mouse, you see it pop up at the bottom. It's currently 1px, but I can make it 2ps. You can make it 2ps if you want it to show very well. So div navbar, the anchor with a hover effect. So that's going to be a hover effect. Okay, so it means when you hover your mouse over it, you want it to have a border bottom, not around all this thing, all around the nav element, but then just at the bottom of it. So let's say I give it 2px solid, and then the color is ff of 4 zeros, gives us red. So when I do this and save, now you see if I hover my mouse over that, you can see there is some red color border at the bottom. Let me do it 1px. Let us just do it 1px. Okay, nice. So we have our border set up nicely there. But then, even though we have these links here, we don't have the various pages we can navigate to. Okay, so it means we need to create the pages like the home page, home component, the post component, and then new post component. So we need to have them as pages, and because they are going to be a complete page on their own, would rather you put them in the pages folder instead of components. Now components, we are just using the components folder to host smaller units of maybe logics that we want to actually insert into pages. So maybe I have a button and I want to create a component, a button component. I put it in a component because the button component is not a page, right? So I'll rather put it in a component and call it in a page component. If I want to maybe create a card is not a page, it's just a small unit that I'll be slotting into another element, so or into another component. So the card itself should be a component, it should be in the components folder, and then rather put the ones that are the main page, they will host a lot of things on them, rather use them as pages and then bring the components in. So something like home, I want to create it under pages, so I'll select the pages folder, come here and then put in the home.js component, and the home.js component, let me do my function in here. So I have the function there. Now I need to put some stuff in here and then display it on the page. Let me just put a text in here to show that. Yep. So I've typed in home inside this place.